Hello family, it is good to be back. It's good to see you again. Not that I can actually see you, but you know what I mean. It's good to be in front of you again, knowing that you're out there, and I want to thank you for hanging in there with me while I took a very long, unplanned break. I wish I could tell you that I've been on some tropical island taking a much needed vacation, but as the lack of tan here would testify, that is not the case. I wanted to go over some quick housekeeping stuff. The obvious, I have a set now. This is just my guest bedroom in my house. I'm sitting next to a pile of laundry, full disclosure. I just wanted to make a space in my house where I could just designate it for making videos, because I was having to rearrange my living room and time my videos with the sun and the window and this and that, and I just wanted to make it easier for myself. So I found all this stuff like in my garage and in boxes. How could that chicken lamp be in a box? I don't know how that happened, but it is out for all to see now, as it should be. I want you to know, if you've been on my email list, that I have tried to email my list. I have tried to email you guys 4 times. And long story short, don't ever do business with Wix. They stink. My account was deactivated a few times. It took weeks to find out why, and then their why wasn't their actual why. They gave me 3 different whys. And then when they said everything was okay to send emails, I go to send another email and they're like, oh, but you can only send it to this many people. You have to prove to yourself that you're a good girl according to our standards. You guys know that I'm not going to be a good girl according to a woke company standards. So I tried a different company, and that company didn't work out either. And so I am currently trying to figure out how to email you guys. I have a list of 50,000 people. And so that is not as easy as it may seem, and there are a lot of rules which we need to kind of change things up a bit so we can communicate with each other. But I just wanted to let you know that I have been thinking about you and trying to communicate with you here and there. It just hasn't worked out. My husband and I are now working on this business together, which is very exciting, and we've been thinking of some new products that I think you guys are going to really like. That being said, I also want to bring out some new t-shirt designs that I've been thinking of, and to make room for those things, I have all my t-shirts and hoodies on my website on sale right now if you want to check those out. All the sizes that you see are the sizes that I have, and I probably will not be ordering more, so just keep that in mind. All right, so I've been gone almost 5 months. I have not made a video. That means I have a lot up here that I have not been able to get out to you. A couple subjects that I want to talk about going forward, God willing, because I know I've learned over the last few years that sometimes I say I'm going to talk about this, and then life happens and it just doesn't happen. But my plan is to talk to you guys about mRNA technology and lab-grown meat and all this stuff happening in our food system. That is extremely important. We need to know everything we can about it so we can actually plan on doing something about it. And also how to barter locally. The central bank digital currency is coming soon. We need to learn how to navigate that, and really the only way to do that is to have a system outside the system, and that will be a barter system. So I want to discuss how to do that. And then of course, we're going to be talking a lot about faith. We're going to be talking about some stuff today regarding spiritual training that will also explain kind of where I've been over the last few months, and hopefully that will encourage you and equip us to navigate these times that we're going into. All right, so let's get into it. So this last about year and a half has been very challenging for me, and that word challenging kind of sums it all up and also is not enough at the same time. It's been very difficult and full of mourning various things, mourning the loss of people, relationships, pets, lifelong dreams and plans. And although I know that it's been very draining and purging and refining, and biblically speaking, those are all very good things, it doesn't mean that it makes it any easier to go through. But I'm coming out the other side of that, and I want to share with you and encourage you if you're going through anything like that as well, where you just feel like God is breaking you, that He is breaking those ties to the world, that He's breaking that independence, being able to do things in your own ability. For me, God gave me a lot of talents. He gave me the ability to do and be good at a lot of different things. And he brought me to a place over the last few months where I just felt like I couldn't do anything. And now that I'm coming out on the other side of it, I'm so grateful for it. And I want to share what that looked like for me to encourage you, because I know that life is very difficult and that most likely most of you are going through something that is difficult right now. And so let's talk about that and why, the why of it, and how we can use that and how we can look at it in a different way. It comes down to this. If we truly believe that we are entering into a time where the entire world is going to face very heavy hardship, the believing church is going to be highly persecuted. People that stand up for what is right are going to be very marginalized and punished for doing so. If I truly believe that, and I do, why would I expect the season before it to be anything less than challenging? The reason it needs to be challenging and should be challenging, and thank God it's challenging, is because we need to be trained. We need training for what's coming. Because no athlete goes into a major game starting to train in the middle of the game. Nobody says, okay, when I get in the game, then I'll start practicing my skills. No, they train beforehand so that when they go into that battle or the game, that they can persevere and win. Or as the Bible puts it, can overcome. So right now I want to give you some personal examples of things I've gone through, some hardships that God has used to train me over the last few months. And please remember that the 3 things I'm going to mention are just 3 of 100. So don't think that I had to take a 5-month hiatus because my garlic failed. Okay, but let's talk about garlic. So last fall I planted this beautiful organic garlic. Everything comes up beautifully. It's thriving for months. I'm watering it and fertilizing it for months. Everything's looking wonderful. And about a month before it's supposed to be harvested, it starts getting kind of shriveled and brown. And I'm like, well, you know what? I think that's supposed to happen when it's ready. Long story short, I pull it up and I got nubs. I don't have garlic cloves. I have nubs, like nothing usable. It totally failed. This entire beautiful large bed of garlic failed. And here's the lesson in the training. Because it happened right now and not later, I still have time. I can go to the store and just buy garlic, and then I can freeze dry it. I have time to go to YouTube University and study more about how to grow things in Zone 8B. And thank God that my family was not dependent on that harvest to survive and eat. I can still, again, go to the store and just buy it. So I am grateful for the training and the failure and the frustration, because when it happened, I felt gutted. I was like, gosh darn it, like, growing food is difficult. And full disclosure, the same goes for my failed potatoes, broccolini, beets, carrots, and shallots. So you can see my frustration of just like all the money and the time and the work and the sweat put into something, and it's for nothing. I got nothing. I got a few carrots and beets this year, but that was like after 3 years of failure. So I'm getting there, but I'm learning. I'm being trained. Another personal example of training is I lost my cat, Iceman. About a week after I made my last video, he passed away. I was wrecked. I'm still wrecked. I still ugly cry at least once or twice a week. And it's been months because that cat, for reasons I'm not going to go into, was extremely special to me. We were very attached to each other. He was truly a gift. And I've lost chickens that I love, our beloved Dolly. And I've lost people that were very dear to me. So in this time of mourning, God is training me, because in my spirit, it is shouting, this is not the way it's supposed to be. Death was not the plan. But in this season of training, I still have time to mourn. I have the luxury to have a sad day and mourn. I have the luxury of reading my Bible in freedom and digging into my faith. And Romans 8, where it talks about how us and creation together are groaning and yearning and longing for our redemption, yearning for the promise of another life where death and disease are not part of the plan. I live in the country, and when you live in the country, because there is a lot of life around you, which is wonderful and beautiful, there is also death. And literally every day I see death. And I don't know if you guys have seen the movie Risen. It's a Christian movie, but it's actually a good one. It's well done and well acted. And the main character, the premise of the movie is that the Roman centurion soldier who witnessed Christ being crucified basically goes on this journey after he is resurrected, and he sees Jesus, and he's just reconciling his faith and everything. So in the beginning of the movie, I think his name is Claudio. We'll call him Claudio. No, that sounds too much like Fabio. We'll call him Claudius. Okay. He's sitting talking to a peer of his, and he's just like, what do you want, Claudius? What do you want, Claudius? And he's like, I want a day without death. Because all day long, all he sees, he goes to battle, he kills, he's putting people to death and everything, and he's just wrestling, he's exhausted. So fast forward towards the end of the movie, and he's actually with Jesus on a hill. And it's such a beautiful scene, but I just run this scene over and over again in my head because it's so poignant to the times we're living in. And I don't know if you guys experience this, but I gotta share it. So he's sitting in front of Jesus, and they're talking, quietly, and Claudius is still struggling with looking at Jesus, who he literally witnessed die, sitting in front of him, and he knows he's God, and he's finally accepted it. And Jesus says to him, Claudius, what do you want? And he's naming these things because Claudius is silent. And he says, a peaceful day, a family, what do you want? And then Jesus says, a day without death. And Claudius just breaks and he weeps because he knows Jesus knows what he wants. And it's that's what I want. Every time I see a dead animal or anything, watch someone die, watch something I love die, I just think of that. God, I just want a day without death. So in this training season, I am being trained to yearn for that world beyond this one, to trust God for his promises, to trust that he is very good. He is actually good. And what he says is going to be real one day. Because it's so hard to imagine when we're living in this world that's full of disease and death and sickness. And it's it just seems never ending. And it's going to get worse going forward. So although I yearn for that day without death, in this training season, I am being taught to surrender it to him and trust him who overcame death. My final personal example of training, I don't know if you guys ever have had a lifelong dream, just something that you've desired your whole life, and it's just a goal and something good, and nothing bad or selfish or greedy or anything, but my dream has been to own property, to own my own home. I have been, as a woman especially, designing my own dream home for decades and just looking forward to that day. And here I am, 45 years old. I've never owned my own home. I've always rented. And long story short, we have been priced out of the area we live in to ever own property here, unless things tank, and who knows, but whatever. I've had to surrender that dream to God. And I'm not going to go into the details of it, but it was a 2.5 year process of him and I wrestling, just asking him why, because it's you know me best, you know my dreams and desires, why don't I have a property? I feel I've done everything right, as if God is quid pro quo, oh, you do this for me, I will give you property. I don't know why he just became Persian, but anyway, but in wrestling with him and surrendering that lifelong dream, as if I'm just saying okay, God, if it never happens, that's okay. Because here's the thing, my husband and I are building seemingly permanent buildings, chicken coops, gardens, and everything on someone else's property right now that was supposed to be a temporary stop before we found our own. And what's happened is we've put hundreds of hours, sweat equity, thousands and thousands of dollars in soil and wood and just all the things needed to homestead onto someone else's property, knowing that any time we can get a notice saying that you need to leave. And I've had to learn through this season of training to hold everything with a loose grip, knowing that it's temporary. And the thing is this, whether you own it or not, everything here is temporary. This world is not our home, and this is not the place where we put down permanent roots. And that is something that he had to teach me here and not here, because it's very easy. You know, a lot of you are like, I know this world's not our home. I totally get it. I totally believe that. But no, until you have your lifelong dream thrown against the wall in a good, healthy training way, he not only grilled it into here, he slayed it into here. So I really got it, because we've been sold this lie that, like, no, if something's good, if something's inherently good, like, it's God wants you to have it, you know? And it's like, no, that's not necessarily the case. God has already promised all those things in his word for the world to come. And he doesn't want you attached to the temporary things of this life, whether they're good or not. We know that the Bible tells us that God trains and equips and warns those he loves so that we can be prepared for what's coming. He does. He's good that way. But there are scary things that are said in the Bible, and one of those verses for me, and it's going to sound strange at first, but when Paul says, I learned to be content in all things. To me, I've read that, and that's always a scary verse, because all things means I am content in death. I am content in loss. I am content without that dream. I am content to lose those things that I love. I am content to clip the ties to this world that I'm surrounded with and be content in Christ alone. And that is scary, especially to us Americans who have been so trained to believe that contentment means, like, I just didn't get the sports car that I wanted and I had to settle for a used Toyota Camry. You know what I'm saying? Like, when he says all things, that's scary. That's scary. But God is taking some of us through that because he knows that he's going to use us in that time. He's going to strengthen us for him and those that need him. And the world needs him more than ever. You guys know that. Hebrews 11 is one of my favorite chapters in the Bible, and it speaks of the men of old whom the world was not worthy, who because of their faith they put their hope and trust in God, not in the things of this world, but in the promises of the world to come. And I read that chapter over and over again to encourage me. I want you to listen to it right now. Speaking of the men of great faith. Starting in verse 13. All these died in faith without receiving the promises, but having seen them and welcomed them from a distance, and having confessed that they were strangers and exiles on the earth. For those that say such things make it clear that they are seeking a country of their own. And indeed, if they had been thinking of that country from which they went out, their old life here on earth, they would have had opportunity to return. But as it is, they desire a better country, that is, a heavenly one. Therefore, God is not ashamed to be called their God, for he has prepared a city for them. I wasn't going to keep reading, but this chapter just makes my heart thump, and I just want to share this because I just want to do what I think God leads me to say. Speaking of these men and women, they were stoned, they were sawn in two, they were tempted, they were put to death with the sword. They went about in sheepskins, goatskins, being destitute, afflicted, ill-treated, men of whom the world was not worthy, wandering in deserts and mountains and caves and holes in the ground. And all these, having gained approval for their faith, God not being ashamed to be called their God, did not receive what was promised. Not yet. Because God, who had provided something better for us, so that apart from us they would not be made perfect. Meaning that Daniel, Samuel, David, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Sarah, Rahab, they're all waiting for us to do our part before they receive God's promises. They're still waiting for us to do our part here today. The plan is still in force. We're at the end of the plan. And they don't get to see that city. They don't get to live in the place where the Bible says they will plant vineyards and eat of their fruit. A place with permanent roots. A place where we can relax knowing that disease and death are not a part of life. They have not seen it yet because Christ has not returned, and Christ hasn't returned because he is waiting for us to do the work and bring in the full number of people that are going to be part of our family. Think about it. Think about how we're connected to those men and women of old whom the world was not worthy, who the Bible talks about and esteems for their faith alone. They haven't received the prize either. So the next time you want to feel sorry for ourselves because we don't get what we want, or when we have a sad day, be encouraged that they had many sad days as well and went through so much more than what we've gone through, and we may be going through what they went through soon as well. So what do we do now? The next chapter, Romans 12, says that we are to be encouraged by this great cloud of witnesses that came before us, what we've just been talking about, those men and women. And also we are to fix our eyes on Christ, the author and perfecter of our faith, the one who is equipping us, the one who is training us, the one for the joy set before him endured the cross, and that joy was us, knowing that he was going to save us and bring us into the family of God, knowing that he was going to save us and bring us into that promised city that God is building for us and preparing for us, and all the great ones that came before us. All these promises that we're not going to receive here on earth. What I want to ask you today is, can you and can I, I'm asking this of myself as well, also for the joy set before me, which is him and the city he's building for us, can I give up all things for him? Can I cut the ties of the world? Can I not be encumbered by the false American dream that I think is good? Can I not be distracted by it in order to serve his kingdom and serve him well? Can I put him as my prize at the end of the race instead of a property? Those are the things we have to be thinking about nowadays. Brothers and sisters, that is training. And we can do all the physical training we can. You guys know I've done endless videos about prepping and firearms and shooting and health and this and that. And we can all do that. But this is the real training. These are the hard questions. These are the life evaluating questions that we need to be asking ourselves. What in my life is entangling me, stopping me from serving him? And I know if he gave me that property, I'd be consumed with it and I wouldn't be serving him. I know it. I know it. So take it, Lord. Take it. And I'm going to look forward to your vineyard and your city and your land and your nature and creation that's not going to die. That's what I'm going to look forward to. That's going to be what I fix my eyes on. And I'm not going to be perfect every day. I'm going to get distracted by the people around me building their second and third homes and doing all the things and making all the money and all that. Like the men of old who said that they are strangers and exiles in this land, I'm going to have peace knowing that that is the way I'm going to feel going forward. I'm going to feel strange and I'm going to feel like an exile because I'm not living as the world lives. And right now, my husband and I are struggling with this. We feel like we're living in two different worlds. It's like we're just so wanting God's kingdom, but we're still living in this kingdom where we have to work, we have to pay bills, we have to take care of things, and that's a struggle. And we'll probably talk about that more because I'm sure a lot of you are struggling with that too. It's like once you get it, it's like, how do I live for God's kingdom in Satan's world? All right, guys. I didn't expect to go there, but we went there, and I'm glad because I'm learning as I'm talking this out with you. I'm learning myself. Thank you for sticking with me this long in the video. The videos are going to probably get longer going forward because we're talking about more important stuff. But if you want to support me further, you can go to my website, goodpatriot.com. Remember, all those t-shirts and hoodies are on sale. And sign up for my email list, even though I don't even know how I'm going to email you yet. But we'll get her done. And please pass this video along to people that you think may need it. And just keep praying for us, brothers and sisters. I'm praying for you. I appreciate your prayers as well. I am Katie from Good Patriot, and I will see you guys again soon.